Hey neighbors, I'm Mac McCarty, back to you again with another episode of the Rough and Tumbled. I've certainly enjoyed giving these stories over a period of time here. It's been real good. It's been real good to talk to some of you. People are important. You're important. And sharing our lives, sharing things that we've experienced, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. This story I have today goes back into the, I want to say 80s, maybe mid or late 80s. And it was with Placid Oil Company. Now, Placid was a company that had broke off from Hunt Oil Company. You know, H.L. Hunt had, I think there were two boys and a girl, and the girl had decided to separate from Hunt Oil Company, and she formed, she got part of the production there in the East Texas field, at Woodbine Field, and she named her portion Placid Oil Company. And they had a separate office and separate hands and everything. Of course, some of these guys had worked for Hunt, as I remember. But good, really good bunch of guys to work with. Enjoyed working for them. But they had a lease, and man, the name escapes me. I don't remember the name of the actual lease, but it was down New London, north of New London, Texas. And there was some real hilly ground, where the, big changes in the terrain. And you'd come in off of where there was a neighborhood back in London, New London, and work your way back down through the woods and down this big hill. And you came around to the side of a big old hill, and there was a location right there, well right there. And they had cut into the side of that big hill and made this location, and a lot of iron ore right there. And they got it all drilled and set up, and we hooked up the well, and it wasn't a smaller pumping unit. I would say like the size of a Lufkin 340. It may not have been a Lufkin. I just don't remember, but I remember it was kind of a medium size, and it had a 40 horsepower electric motor on the back of it, 3-phase 480, 40 horsepower. Well, when they did all this, everything rocked along real good for the first, I'd say 2-3 years. And with all the rains that would come in, it would wash that iron ore off the side of the hill and out on that location. And it was just kind of like a big lightning magnet. And right not far from there was a big TV antenna, probably 1,200-1,500 feet high. I actually going through the field at times, 2 or 3 times over the years, I saw lightning actually hit that tower. Pretty neat to see. And so it was an area just sort of attracted to lightning, and or lightning attracted to it, I might say, would be a better way to put it. And I remember getting called down on that well, and the motor was burned up. Well, we didn't, we just pulled the motor off, took it into the motor shop. They repaired it. We took it back down there. I didn't see anything unusual. Put it back on, and it wasn't long. I want to say probably a month or so, that motor was burned up again. They want to say something wrong with it. And I said, no. I said, the motor was fine. I said, we had a big lightning storm come through, and I said, it got that motor. And so they were a little alarmed because it had happened relatively quick. Yeah, you start spending quite a bit of money, and it happens within a month or so, or you get worried about it. Well, we got it all going again, and it happened a third time, probably about the same period of time. Within 4 months, that motor had burned up 4 times. Well, money's going out the door, getting the motor repaired, labor to pull it off, labor to put it back on. And Placid Oil Company, it had their attention, because it's costing them money. Why does this motor keep burning up? And so they called my employer, and he says, well, the man working on it knows what he's doing, been doing it lots of years, and he didn't say anything to me about it. And so they talked to me on the phone and wanted to know what I'd done, and why was that coming in there, and why wasn't I doing something to protect it? I said, it's not coming in on the power. I said, it's hitting that unit. All that iron ore on that location, it's hitting that. Oh, they got all upset about this. This was long about the third time it had happened, and had me drive a bunch of ground rods out there. You got over 3,000 feet of steel in the ground, and little 8-foot ground rods driving several round. Not going to make a lot of difference, but we did it anyway to pacify them and try to make them happy. And guess what? It did it again. And they said, well, it's coming in on the power. I said, we've got lightning protection, we've got surge, we've got all kind of stuff in that panel. Nothing is being touched. Nothing's being burned up. There's no sign of lightning coming in on the power, period. And I guarantee you, if lightning was coming in that way and burning that motor, I would see the evidence with the protection we've got. Something would be blowing up, and we would know. Well, I'm just a lowly electrician. And so they got engineers involved, and, all these people, and come in there and talked and powwowed. And when it had burned up the fourth time, these guys they threw up their hands. We just don't understand how it's coming in on that power. I said, it's not coming in on the power. We've been through this. And, well, why is it hitting that unit? Me, just an old country boy, electrician. I said, well, like I've said, I believe the lightning is hitting the unit, the steel unit out there. Here's a big pad, a lot of iron ore, natural lightning attractant, and this big steel pumping unit standing up there, and it's hitting that unit. They said, well, we've got to quit losing motors. What can we do? I said, tell your pumper when a storm's coming in to go over there and shut that unit off till the storm is past. Shut it off. Well, that's crazy. I said, well, you can keep buying motor jobs. And they said, well, we don't want to do that. And so after a bunch of discussion, they decided get the pumper to go over there and shut the motor off when they knew a storm was blowing in. And guess what? They didn't lose it anymore, because they did that and the motor didn't burn up anymore. Now, eventually, I'm sure something happened, but for the few years that I knew about what was going on there, because I think they sold out later, and the company that bought it out was not one of our customers, so we didn't work on it anymore. But in that interim time, it didn't burn up anymore. And so you see the simplicity of life. It's sometimes so simple. And anything man does, there can be issues with it. Even when it comes to dealing with each other. Treat each other with respect. Never call anybody simple-minded. Don't think of them that way. In the Bible it says, esteem everyone else better than yourself. So you don't look down your nose at them. They may not be real smart in something that you're real smart in, but I promise you, there is something they are better at than you. That's just the way life is. And so all of these educated people came in on this motor problem, on this location, and I'm sure a lot of them kind of looked down their nose at me, just an electrician. You know, that's the way they viewed it. I don't believe that's the way it should have been viewed, but that's the way, that's the reality of this world we live in. And I'm not going to besmirch them. Those people were educated. I respect that. That's fine. But let's show mutual respect. Let's don't call people simple-minded. Let's don't call people ignorant, you know, or backwoods or whatever. And that's one of the lessons in this life. Well, folks, sure have enjoyed sharing this story with you. I miss some of those guys out there. Would like to see them someday. But I'm planning to give some more stories. Hang in there. We'll do it as we can. I'm having some health issues still, but I'll do the best I can. Anyway, the best to all of you out there. Thanks for joining in. Until next time, I'm Mac McCarty saying so long for the Rough and Tumble channel.